Thank you for tuning in today. I'm John Holmes and we have a new rig review. This is the Redcat Gen 8, which is a scale international harvester scout. A pretty sweet looking rig if I do say so myself. So today's topic is the Redcat Gen 8. It's not the most new release, but I wanted to check it out. And although I can't say this is going to be a completely stock review, it is more or less what this rig is. I will preface this by saying that the stock tires are not that great, especially in the wet, so they have been replaced with Pro lines. The stock servo is really not enough power, so that has been replaced with a Solar D772, which I believe is about 400 ounces of torque, which is really good. I would say anything over 300 ounce inches is going to be your best bet for a rock crawler, especially of this heft. Other than that, it is more or less stock. A few other modifications have been made. Instead of the Velcro body attachment, we have magnet body attachment. But let's just start off by looking at this body. It is a pretty wide body, nice and scale. You can see the modification that's been done to put magnets on these portions of the body instead of the Velcro, and that is just a little easier on and off. There has also been some 3D printed interior work done. Most of these you can actually find on Thingiverse, which is pretty cool. And looking at it, the light buckets already accept 5mm LEDs, which is also pretty dang cool. So as far as going for a scale rig, Redcat they're on a good pace with a good looking body. So let's take a look at the actual rig itself. It has a little bit of droop with the stock suspension setup, which is always nice for handling. It has a 4-link in back. It has a 3-link in front with a pan-hard mount and servo on the chassis, which is pretty cool. That's very scale. And I should say it has metal links, which at the $300 price point is great. Metal links are what all rigs really should have. So yeah, they're starting out pretty good. Now it does have plastic slider shafts on here, and to tell you the truth, I kind of like plastic slider shafts. It's a really easy point to replace if you have something break. And I'd much rather twist one of these than to break a gear inside the transmission. So I like that they kept these plastic. I pretty much keep all of mine plastic unless it's going to be a racing rig where I don't want that failure point and everything gets beefed up, but I digress. A few other changes that have been made to this one is a 3D printed skid plate on this, the transmission mount / skid plate. The stock one has a hump in it, and this one I believe is also on Thingiverse. We'll try to put a link down below, so check that out. But otherwise, this rig is pretty much what it is, besides a couple of little accessories changed here and there. It's got the stock motor on there, and it's got stock suspension. So really what I am interested in is how the suspension performs. It's pretty tricky to get a rig with low torque twist, and since this does have portal axles, it should have less torque twist for any given suspension geometry. So I'm looking forward to getting that on the rocks and seeing how bad the torque twist is. Is it going to be manageable? Is it going to drive predictable? That's really what I am looking at, because everything else on the rig can be changed pretty easy, even the suspension geometry, to tell you the truth. But I want to see a rig that comes from the factory with good suspension geometry at this point in the market. The rock crawler market is pretty mature, honestly, and if somebody comes out with a new rig, I expect it to be a pretty good new rig as far as how it handles. So there's really nothing else to say about this right now except for let's go out on the rocks and test it out. I really can't help myself when a new rig comes out. I really just want to try them out, see what they're up with. I think that this is a pretty good chance at the Redcat Racing Company coming into the scale market. They've had a few releases in the past, but this one is just more scale than the rest. They've really been watching the market and doing what people like. So let's do what people like, which is just crawling. I really do enjoy crawling, one of my favorite RC activities. So my first impressions of the rig, it's pretty heavy. It's pretty bulky, and there have been a few changes to this one in that we have some different tires on there. with some Proline tires, some 3D printed rims, and some other small changes that are done to it. But otherwise, this is a stock rig. The handling seems rather well, actually. I do notice a little bit of torque twist if we're going to compare it to the SCX-10-2 or the TRX-4. This rig definitely has a little bit of torque twist. Not an unmanageable amount though, especially considering that it has a chassis mounted servo and a 3-link with panhard. It's kind of hard to get rid of the torque twist and the bump steer, but so far this one's just point and shoot, which is nice. So yeah, although on carpet I can tell low speed control is not great. And y'all have to keep in mind I'm a snob. I'm definitely I'm definitely a snob when it comes to RCs, especially rock crawlers and the electronics. The servo is decent enough. It's nothing to write home about, but you know, kind of get you through. I'd recommend a 300 ounce hitch if you're going to replace it. But the motor, all right, yeah, this is prime example here. The motor, although it's a 550 and it has a lot of torque, it's really spongy, and maybe y'all can see, you know, I'm giving a lot of throttle, and the rig's just kind of, it's not pulling through. And then as soon as I get over, it kind of runs away on us. So, and then it just wants to go. And that's because they put a 17-turn 550 motor in there, and that's just really, in my opinion, a little too fast for a crawler, even if you gear it down to get your wheel speed in check, which they've done a good job at. Hats off to Redcat for that. A 17-turn is just too many amps to produce torque, in my opinion, and so the brushes end up saturating. And when that happens, you kind of have this runaway effect. You get it bound into an object, and as soon as you're unbound, it runs away and goes a lot faster on the backside. And so what I would personally do, first thing I would do in this rig is throw a slightly slower motor into it. 21-turn 550 or a 27-turn 540 that's right about the speed that I feel is kind of a good trade-off. We're going to get ourselves in trouble with this big body. And since I am actually borrowing this rig to have fun with, I am going to hand of God out of this terrible situation, maybe. Oh, I'm going to lose his filler. So just a teeny bit. Normally I wouldn't do that, but I'm going to be a little gentler on this rig. All right, let's see how it does on this downhill. Yeah. All right, so although the rig is pretty heavy, it has a decently low center of gravity. I will say the heft of the body, and we have the magnetic mounts on this one. Redcat gives you a choice of magnetic mounts on the body and also Velcro mounts, and we've got magnet mounts. We just kind of rip it off. We gotta get our fingers under there, I guess. There we are, and pop it off. And again, some more 3D printed items that the local owner of this has. He has a little lower battery tray, maybe, or just a different battery tray, and some seats in there, and I think he threw in some extra magnets. Maybe the stock ones weren't quite good enough. And 8 magnets though. 8 magnets that's a lot of magnets. No, these are that's stock magnets. So yeah. As you can see, it's fully molded rails and the fender wells here. Pretty thick, pretty beefy plastic. Overall, the thoughts on the plastic from Redcat is it's actually pretty good. I would say kind of a high nylon content, but you know, long term, we'll just have to see how it holds up. Certainly not a long-term endorsement of this, but I mean, from the bat, I would say the value of this one is pretty dang good. I mean, especially considering what we have had in the market in the past. $300 ready-to-run price point. You basically add batteries, a charger, and let's see if she comes out. I think it will. Come on, Redcat. This is where the torque twist is actually hindering it. It's making the suspension hard. If I let off the throttle, it'll probably settle down here. Here we go. A very predictable rig. Very predictable. So just need to make a conclusion here really on the rig. For the price, honestly, I would say for $300, you're getting a lot of value. I wouldn't hesitate to buy one of these if I needed another rig, which is why I'm borrowing this rig, is that I really didn't need just one more rig in the fleet of 40 plus at this point. So we're gonna just have fun borrowing it. But I wouldn't hesitate to recommend this for the $300 price point. So pretty cool that they've got this amount of performance as far as the center of gravity and the suspension, even though it has a little bit more torque twist, like I've said again, as compared to the SCX-10 II and the TRX-4. That's manageable. That's totally manageable. Very predictable suspension, and that's what I really want to see. Besides being a good price value, what I really grade rigs on, I think at this point in the market, is that they have good suspension geometry, especially for an off-road 4x4 truck. That's the difference between getting through a section and just having the rig wad itself up, or go in an unpredictable manner where you can't control the direction of the flow through the rocks. So they've done a good job on that. That is awesome. I'm very happy to drive a new rig like this from a company that I have not experienced before and actually be able to say, I like it. So hey, that's 2 thumbs up for me, and 1 controller, which is also, I should say, comfortable to hold and to use. Uses 4 AA batteries in there, so pretty standard. Yeah, at this point, I'm gonna just sign off and keep crawling for a while. So after getting the Redcat Gen 8 on the rocks, I must say I am actually quite impressed with the suspension geometry, which is probably my biggest nitpick of any new rig that comes out. It had a little bit of torque twist, but it was by no means unmanageable. The bump steer on the suspension is really about nil. There's a teeny little bit, but you're always gonna have that with a 3-link rig. And really the only gripe that I would have is stock electronics. And that's something that you can pretty much guarantee on any rigs. Also the stock tires, of course, we didn't run those because they're stock tires. They're not gonna hook up that great. The only thing that I could really complain about on this particular rig is that the 17-turn 550 is just a little too fast for my preference. And it's not so much the wheel speed that I don't like, it's how it feels on the rocks. A slightly slower motor would have a lot better torque control when going up certain obstacles, pretty much any obstacle that puts a load on it, to tell you the truth. And in my opinion, running, say, a 21-turn 550 on 3S would be a lot better idea than running a 17-turn on 2S. But it still works, and maybe you want that kind of wheel speed in a trail rig. It's really a little bit too fast for me, especially considering that I always use a 3S on rigs, but when we were testing outside, that was on 2S, so you can see what kind of wheel speed it has, which is, it's pretty good, it's decent. So really my takeaway on this rig is, for the money, it is pretty dang good. They got the suspension geometry right, it looks really good, it's easy to get parts, but I can't say anything about the long-term durability of it if you go to upgrade your motor and ESC. So if you put too much power to it, you're probably gonna start breaking some gears, which most rigs are like that. That's really nothing new. So that's something that I can't say long-term how it is going to work. But the first thing that I'm going to do to this rig is actually throw in a slower motor. So probably gonna do a 21-turn Torque Master 550 Sport, or I'm sorry, Trail Master 550 Sport, or I might just go full blown and throw in a Crawlmaster Pro 550 in a 10-turn. I need to think about that. So yeah, we will have another video coming at you soon with an upgraded motor system in there, probably an upgraded ESC in there to see how it does. If you do have any questions about the rig that I didn't cover, feel free to post them down below. But overall, I really like this rig. They did a good job, and for the money, I think it is a great deal. So thanks for tuning in and have a good day. Sorry, Craig.